Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Self-Development Tactics podcast. Today, we are going through Transcend by Scott Barry Kaufman once again. We're gonna finish it up today. There's actually really not that much left. Fortunately, because then I do have the time and also the possibility to go through something else, another book summary. Hopefully a pretty great one, hopefully a pretty good one. So let's see. The last two things apparently are they're transcending the selfish-unselfish dichotomy, and the last one is the paradox: you need a strong ego / identity to transcend it, which totally makes sense. But anyway, let us see. According to Maslow, the ordinary dichotomy between selfish and unselfish is resolved because people who pursue their selfish gratification are automatically helping others. Vice versa, when they are being altruistic, they are automatically rewarded and gratified because what pleases them the most is using their wealth and competence to benefit all the other members of the culture. It must be stated that self-actualization is not enough. Personal salvation and what is good for the person alone cannot be really understood in isolation. The good of other people must be invoked as well as the good for oneself. It is quite clear that a purely intra-psychic, individualistic psychology without reference to other people and social conditions is not adequate. Maslow's 1966 unpublished essay, Critique of Self-Actualization Theory. And I gotta be honest, I think it is actually pretty amazing that he did that he actually criticized his own work, which is not always the case, Not all people do so, but I think it is just really, really important. Also for oneself and also developing this theory or developing this whole system, because if you're criticizing it, if you're trying to find points that are not good about it, you can transform it and you can better it, which is pretty amazing, which I think is quite always the case, No matter what you're doing, whether you're designing something, whether you're creating something, whether you are writing something, trying to, basically get into an argument with yourself is pretty neat and pretty great. And definitely something that I could suggest you to do as well, to really make sure that whatever the fuck you're doing, producing and whatnot, really is good, and really stands through every sort of argument and criticism and whatnot. But yeah, anyway, it must be stated that self-actualization, I have read that already. In a 1961 paper, Maslow observed that self-actualization seems to be a traditional goal, a rite of passage, a step along the path to the transcendence of identity. This is like saying its function is to erase itself. Self-actualization paradoxically makes more possible the transcendence of self and self-consciousness and of selfishness. Maslow's 1962 book, Toward a Psychology of Being. We see that self-actualizing people resolve ordinary dichotomies. We tend to think of a heightened sense of connectedness as contrary to a heightened sense of individuality. However, as Maslow pointed out, the dichotomy is resolved among self-actualizing individuals. The fact is that self-actualizing people are simultaneously the most individualistic and the most altruistic and social and loving of all human beings. The fact that we have in our culture put these qualities at opposite ends of a single continuum is apparently a mistake that must now be corrected. These qualities go together and the dichotomy is resolved in self-actualizing people. As I, by the way, think there are very, very often dichotomies of different sorts, and I have talked about that, I guess. I'm actually not quite sure, but labeling yourself as an introvert might just not always be the case, I do think, and at least I'm seeing it in me, I do have a dichotomy of introvertism, or being an introvert, and also being an extrovert. I need both. And, one could argue that because one needs both, apparently at least the case is for me, this is quote-unquote normal, and or it is just balancing things out. Which is, in the end, maybe creating a balanced life and balanced lifestyle. Who knows? This is just a thought, nothing really of quality here, just a subjective thought. But there are so many different dichotomies in life, where one end just needs the other end to be possible, like, light and dark, or just light and shadow. You need shadow so that you have light, because if there is no fucking shadow, how the fuck should there be light? And also vice versa, and so on and so forth. So I do think that often one end leads to the other end, or one end makes the other end possible. The fully developed and very fortunate human being working under the best conditions tends to be motivated by values which transcend his self. They are not selfish anymore in the old sense of that term. Beauty is not within one's skin, nor is justice or order. One can hardly class the desires as selfish in the sense that my desire for good might be. My satisfaction with achieving or allowing justice is not within my own skin, it does not lie along my arteries. It is equally outside and inside, therefore it has transcended the geographical limitations of the self. Maslow. The realization of healthy transcendence offers a new vision of civilization. Historically, the interests of society and the interests of the individual have been seen as mutually exclusive, sometimes even antagonistic. Whatever is good for the person is bad for civilization. However, as we've seen as we have been climbing to higher heights of integration, this need not to be the case. The purpose and values of the person can be synergetic with what is good for the society. The healthiest societies are built on a realistic understanding of human needs and offer the greatest growth, fostering potential for the individuals who are part of the society. The whole problem that I'm seeing with the thinking of, okay, when I'm doing something for myself, this automatically is bad for society, is that it is not gonna lead to any sort of satisfaction and or happiness. If you constantly think that whatever the fuck you're doing is not serving you in any way, whether it is the truth or whether it isn't, this is not going to lead to something good. One can already see that, I'd say. But the thing is, when you are happy, you probably are serving society also way, way, way better than when you're unhappy. So in the end, whether it is about a dichotomy, whether it is about one end leading to the other end, or it is just about balance, might not actually be that important. Of course, this is a theory. Of course, this is theoretical work, and in this sense or in this context, it really is important. Whether it is this thing or that thing, because it is an analysis. But stating the whole concept, or just stating that when I'm doing something for myself, it is automatically going to be bad for society, does just not have to be the case and can be changed. Whether it is changed in this or that way really doesn't matter then, in the practical sense. Paradox, you need a strong ego /self/identity to transcend it. Having a substantial quieting of the ego is strongly related to having a strong, not weak sense of self, and with increased, not weakened authenticity. Indeed, those with the quietest ego defenses often have the strongest sense of self. As the Buddhist Harvard psychotherapist Jack Engler put it, you have to be someone before you can be nobody. In his 1962 article, Peak Experiences as Acute Identity Experiences, Maslow tried to make sense of this seeming paradox, noting that the greatest attainment of identity, autonomy, or selfhood is itself simultaneously a transcending of itself, going beyond and above selfhood. The person can then become egoless. There is the total loss of self-consciousness or self-observation, which is normally with us, but which we feel to lower in any absorption or interest or concentration or distraction or being taken out of ourselves, whether on the high level of peak experiences or on the low level of becoming so interested in a movie or a novel or a football game as to become forgetful of oneself and one's minor pains, one's appearance, one's worries, etc. This is practically always felt as a pleasant state. So which is actually very interesting, he's saying that, or him saying that, because I would have thought that when you're doing something and you really are consumed by it so that you forget about quite everything else around you, that it is some sort of a flow state. But he said that it is just forgetting about oneself, and it is, it is a pleasant state, but it is nothing extraordinary or nothing that maybe should be pursued. I don't know, maybe I'm also getting it wrong. Could be the case as well. Who knows? Transcender worldview and wisdom. The theory said worldview is full of awe, beauty, wonder, savoring, exploration, discovery, openness, holistic perception, unconditional acceptance, gratitude, be love, and be humility. Honest assessments of one's capacities rather than hiding oneself. Be playfulness, ego transcendence, synergy, unity, intrinsic motivation for work, and a motivation for the ultimate values in life. The theory said worldview is congruent with other prominent theories of ego development in the psychological literature, such as the integrated level in Jane Loeving's stages of development, the ego integrity and generativity stages of Erickson's stages of psychological development, the inter-individual stage of Robert Keegan's constructive developmental theory, and the post-conventional stages of Susan Cook-Greuter's theory of ego development. Outside of the classical psychological literature, there are also connections to the highest states of consciousness in Ken Wilber's integral theory and the second tier of Claire Graven's spiral dynamics. The theory said worldview is strikingly similar to the modern psychological research on wisdom. Wisdom is often conceptualized in psychological literature as evolving an integration among cognitive, affective, and behavioral dimensions. This includes the ability to accept multiple perspectives, to respond non-defensively when challenged, to express a wide variety or array of emotions in order to derive meaning, to critically evaluate human truths, and to become aware of the uncertain and paradoxical nature of human problems. As clinical psychologist Werder Kramer, Kramer, puts it, wise people have learned to view the positive and negative and synthesize them to create a more human, more integrated sense of self, in all its frailty and vulnerability. They seem able to first embrace and then transcend self-concerns to integrate their capacity for introspection with a deep and abiding concern for human relationships and generative concern for others. Wisdom tends to increase with age and is most common among those with high levels of openness to experience, the capacity for self-examination and introspection, a motivation for personal growth, and the willingness to remain skeptical of one's self-views, continually questioning assumptions and beliefs and exploring and evaluating new information that is relevant to one's identities. Which I think is actually very, 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 very important, to just question things, whether it is your own values, your own views, or just something, rather objective. School system, pretty dominant, prominent, and liked one, I guess. And just everything. Like, do I really need to do this? Do I really have to be like this? Do I really have to say this? Do I really have to act in this way? And most often we come to the conclusion like, no, we don't have to. But there are certain benefits to doing certain things in a certain way, and there are maybe not necessarily benefits sometimes, but just mitigating risks of something else. Just because something maybe isn't entirely bad doesn't have to make it good either. Could just also be something in between. As I said, just trying to mitigate even worse things, which just really does not make it very good. Depends on the thing though. And anyway, integration and full humanness. I don't know. Becoming fully human is about living a full existence, not one that is continually happy. Being well is not always about feeling good. It also involves continually incorporating more meaning, engagement, and growth in one's life. Wholeness is an aspiration, not a destination. It is a process, not a state that is ever achieved. The process of becoming a whole person is an ongoing journey of discovery, openness, and courage, in which you reach higher and higher levels of integration and harmony within yourself and with the outside world, allowing greater flexibility and freedom to become who you truly want to become. Since you are always in a state of change, you are always in a state of becoming. The English humanistic psychotherapist John Rowan used the analogy of Russian nesting dolls to illustrate Maslow's notion of an integrated hierarchy. Each larger doll includes all the smaller dolls, but also transcends them. Once we are working on our highest purpose, for instance, our needs for safety, connection, or self-esteem don't vanish. Instead, they become integrated with our more transcendent purpose. When the whole person is well integrated, all of their basic needs are not merely met, but work together to facilitate growth toward realizing their highest goals and values. In my view, the healthiest form of transcendence does not lie in anyone's aspect of your being, but involves the healthy integration of your entire being. Viewed holistically, the characteristics of transcendence represent a complete Weltanschauung or worldview. I didn't know that Weltanschauung is English, a particular philosophy or view of life. Just the way you see the world or see things in general, which, probably also incorporates your opinions and so on and so forth. Anyway, similar to what Maslow referred to as healthy childishness or a second naivety, in which there is true integration of the person at all levels. This worldview includes the satisfaction of the security and growth needs, but also transcends them. A transcender is also able to fluidly navigate both the D realm and the B realm of it. By this point, it should be clear that self-actualization and self-transcendence can very much be harmonious with each other. I believe that a true integration of Eastern, Western, and indigenous philosophical notions of self-actualization is not only possible but necessary for reaching the highest feelings of human nature. Becoming a whole person involves a hierarchical integration of security, growth, and transcendence. We need not pit these realms of being against one another. At the highest level of integration, they fuse into a single one, or a single whole. From the perspective of the theory said, you're able to look at all the human needs lovingly and non-judgmentally from the highest vantage point possible, viewing them not as separate from one another, but as integrated and harmonious. This vantage point isn't tethered to your own self or identity, although if needs be, you can still clearly see all of it. And that is it with the summary, actually. I thought it would actually be a bit faster than this, it actually took me quite some time. And it apparently is written by Kyle Kowalski. Actually, very, 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 very amazing summary, since it's been very detailed and in-depth. Something that I do want to say is, just because I thought about it while going through it, we all have the possibility or we all can have a look at our feelings and certain things on themselves. I think this is good. But on the other hand, things should also be viewed as a whole. Doing sports and, that's easy example or simple example. Today in the morning, I have worked out. And so I thought, I'm not going to work out my quads as excessively as I maybe should, because I know, without actually it being kind of the equivalent, but I know that I'm going to ride my bike probably today as well. So watching itself and having a look at itself, me working out, maybe I have fucked it up a bit, because I didn't work out my legs as I should have. On the other hand, I'm also doing cardio, which is a good thing per se. I'm doing cardio, I'm just riding my bike, whatever it might be. And so as a whole, it becomes, quite neutral, I fucked up a bit and I did something good, and now everything is in balance. And so I think also the whole body and the whole human mind should be viewed at. Of course, if you're able to look at a system per se and make it better, I think this is gonna just make the whole equation. Which also means, okay, maybe I should have done a bit more leg exercises, or something that I'm not going to stress when I'm riding my bike or doing some other form of cardio. like what is it called? Hamstrings. Yeah, I also did that. To just also sometimes being smart about things, looking at systems themselves, trying to optimize them, but by simultaneously having a look at the whole thing and trying to make sense out of it and trying to figure things out and trying to make it as great and as well as you can do it for yourself. Not for anybody else, but for yourself. With that being said, gotta see you next time. Bye-bye.